Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Hi, my name is Cyril. I am the creator behind Cyril Cybernated. And if you read it on the title, you are right. Today we're talking more about Lechuza PON. This is not a sponsored video, although I wish it was. Because even after months, I think it's been 6 months, after I put out that information video about PON, I still get a lot of PON related questions. So I thought of accumulating all those questions and just answering them in this one video so that I could send this one video in case anyone would ask me about PON. So if you're one of those people who's watching this video because I directed you to this material, comment down below. Anyway, since we're talking about content, if you like these types of content, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. I don't post a lot of content as often as I would want to here. However, I would definitely try to put out more video content. It's just harder to produce. But today, I just got off work and I thought of just like, you know what, I've always had this in the back of my mind, so just turn those lights on and just start the record button. So most of the questions that I get about PON is number one, people ask me, where do I get PON? Do I sell PON? Like, no, as much as I've been an advocate of using the Lechuza PON substrate, you still have to order them on their website, which is, I believe, www.lechuzaus.com if you live in the US, and everywhere else, I think it's the lechuza.com website. I know some retailers carry them. I think I came across before that Lechuza PON, you could also order them on the Home Depot website. I'm not so sure if that's still a thing right now, but it's always out of stock. So to tell you, if you're watching this right now, there's probably like 90% chance that the PON substrate, which is found on the accessories tab on their website, will be out of stock. And let me just move over here just so I could put some overlays on this side that will serve as your visual, because I'm very visual as a person and as a learner as well. So you go to the PON website, you will see that it's out of stock. Then you would have the option to be notified when the PON will be back in stock. So what I usually do is I try to put my email on the notifications list or waiting list on all different sizes. The smallest one would be like a 1.4 something or a 6 liter, a 12, and I think the next one is like a 4 point something or 24. I'll put that over here. So I just turn on notifications so that as soon as they restock on whichever size becomes available, you will get notified. And that's what I do. Go to the website, turn on notifications, and just be on the lookout for that notification email from them. Now, if you've successfully ordered PON, and congratulations, because you've managed to snag a bag or two. I recently ordered and I got notified because of their notification email. And I just recently got one of the smallest bags that they offer, which is a 6 liter bag. And PON is an inorganic substrate. You can refer to my previous videos if you want all that nitty gritty. Also, you could read it up on their website. It's made for both indoor and outdoor plants. And what I love about this is I could basically use this as is without mixing it with anything else, because this itself is a mix on its own. It's made of lava rocks, zeolites, and some pumice or pumice, however you want to say it. So it's inorganic as well. However, that doesn't make it completely resistant to pests or some insect issues, so that you also have to take into consideration. And other than where do I get PON, the next question I would usually get from friends or even just my followers on Instagram is that, like, how do I use PON? Do I use it with dirt or soil, or do I use it as something, as an additive to my current substrate? So like what I mentioned earlier, PON is a substrate that is good enough to stand alone on its own because it's its own mix. And you could use it in a variety of different purposes. Now, once you open your bag, you open it here. You just remove the seal. It'll expose the Lechuza pond itself. What I personally like to do, but it's not required, and it is also indicated on their website that you don't have to pre-wash your pond, but I just like pre-washing it because later on I'll talk about the different self-watering planters that I like to use, and I'll show you a lot of varieties on how you can work around your pond and how to plant up your plants in them. So because I like to use the clear self-watering planters, based on my experience, if you pre-wash your pond, let it dry, and then that's the time that you use it with your planting, it leaves less residue because it does have dust. Because the lava rocks would definitely scratch each other and produce this grayish, brownish, powdery thing. So whenever you water your plants, the first few washes would really have that residue. And that answers the question if you really need to pre-wash your pond or not. So it's not a requirement. However, if I like, now that the season will get colder, as I upload and record this video, of course I wouldn't be comfortable doing everything outside anymore, so I would just like to pre-wash everything, keep a small amount of pond readily available in case I need to pot up some cuttings or repot some plants or convert the plants itself into self-watering. So I guess that answers that question. However, I've also tried not pre-washing them at all and just like directly scooping from my bag, putting them in my planter or my pot, and then just like running water through after I've already planted or repotted my plants. So when it comes to conversion, you really need to power wash those roots, because what I used to do, and I'll use this as an example, when I converted my Hoya Lacunosa Eskimo, or no, not Lacunosa, Hoya Croniana Eskimo or Splash, it was rooting in moss, or well, there was some moss in my substrate before, and I didn't completely wash off the moss, and for a while it was okay, it was growing, and then suddenly, because moss was retaining too much moisture, and because pond itself is made to be super airy, let the water run through regardless if you plant with it directly or do a self-watering or wicking system, then down the road it might cause some damage on your plant. So this one finally bounced back after losing a lot of strands or stems, just because I failed to clean up the moss in the roots of this plant when I converted it into pond. Now it is doing well. This is an example of a self-watering planter. Now this one is not transparent. As you can see, you will see the dirt in there. The dirt is mainly from the systemic granules that I like to use, and because this net pot was a gift from a friend, like you can see the roots peeking out or peeking through the slits or holes. And as you can see, the plant is very much happy. I'm just waiting for this to bloom, just so we're really sure that it's super happy now. But definitely it's bounced back in the last year, less than a year, that I've converted this in Lechuza pond. So this is one type of planter that you could use this with. I would refer to this as something that has a wicking system. So this is actually like a net pot situation. There's a wick that uses capillary action to soak up water from your reservoir. And I am not even bothered that there are roots already like literally soaking on the water reservoir at the bottom, because that means the plant is actually trained to be hydro or water loving. So it doesn't bother them anymore compared to if you had this in soil and it was just getting soggy and getting super drenched with all that excess moisture. So this is the first example of a self-watering pot that you could have it in. And the next example I'm gonna show you, the first one was a Hoya. This one is an Aetherium vitarifolium. This is also in Lechuza pond, and if you notice, there are a lot of green algae mold, not mold, but like gunky algae, even some wild weed growing in my substrate. I'm not bothered by it actually, and the excess accumulation of some residue at the bottom doesn't bother me as well. It's so easy to wipe. I just use a paper towel to clean off the accumulation at the bottom. And this is what I was referring to. That's why I like to pre-wash them. Now this is not a result because I didn't pre-wash my pond. Algae would naturally accumulate because you know, it's a living thing and algae is found everywhere. And because it always retains this moisture at the bottom of the reservoir, it tends to be a very perfect breeding ground for all these algae. As long as it's not excessive, I would usually take my time cleaning off my self-watering planters, let's say once every quarter. And this is the newest leaf that grew since I placed this in pond. I got this in originally soil, and then I didn't even acclimate it. I just planted it directly into pond, and I will see if the next leaf is also going to be this large or even larger, because my goal is really to have like a very pendant, prolifically growing Aetherium vitterifolium. So this is another example of a planter, and this is another example of a plant that would thrive in pond. And then third example is, of course, they don't have to be established plants. This one is a cutting, well, these are cuttings actually, of what's left of my pink princess before. This one is a perfectly half moon leaf, which is so cute. Other than the wicking system, which you've seen on the first two examples, your pond also works with these types of self-watering planters. So of course there's no hole, there's some accumulation of some residue at the bottom, but you know, there's like a foot to this inner pot, wherein at the bottom of these legs or pots also has pond in them, and it just soaks up water on its own through capillary action. And if you can see, there's a baby root over here, and I think my phone is going on sleep mode. So this kind of self-watering pot also works, especially if you're someone who doesn't like to see all the gunk, all the dirt, or the water level. For me, it's just very effective to monitor the water level, making sure that my plants don't get dried up. So this is a philodendron thriving and living its best life in pond. Actually, it hasn't looked better since it looked better since I've converted them in pond. In addition, I also like to start cuttings directly in pond. So this variegated Hoya bella or Lechuza lanceolata was starting to dry up. It used to be in pond, but I had to cut the ends because it was getting root rot. So I had to restart the plant. These are actually just dessert containers that you get from the Dollar Tree. You don't need a wicking system. You could just fill up the actual container with pond. Make sure that the water level is at least a third. Actually, I just refilled this now, so it's like half of the actual level that I want it to be in. And if you can see, the roots are growing crazy and wild. And even if you leave this for like a day or two without water at all, the roots should be okay, the plant should be okay, because the way that they are growing with pond, it's really made to be airy and like it have enough space so it doesn't really react that much to a lot of neglect or you forgetting to water them. I also have another Aetherium. Now this hasn't been an established plant. This is actually a fresh import, and I just realized that there's a, what do you call this? A flower, aesthetics, going out instead of a new leaf. So I just acclimated this in water for 24 hours and then I planted it directly in pond. It's doing well so far. And you will soon end up with roots prolifically growing or circling around your self-watering pot. I am usually not bothered about that, and I would just let it be. I mean, you could probably upgrade it to a larger pot. And speaking of acclimation, if you follow me on Instagram, you would remember that I went on live to unbox my Ecuagenera haul, and this was one of them. So I just followed my plant-based advice. We have a show called Planted, and I also upload the episodes here on YouTube. Just to bag this up because I'm scared that it actually needs more humidity than I thought it would, and it's just doing good. Good. It does have roots over here now, starting to see more aerial roots, and the new leaf that was damaged through transit is now bouncing back. So once it puts out a new leaf, that's when I would be super confident that it's actually doing okay. And this one is also in Lechuza pond in like a wicking system. So that's how it works for me. And lastly, I just wanted to show you, like, you don't really need to buy the fancy pots that are available. I usually get mine on Amazon. I do have an Amazon storefront. I will link that in the description below so you can see the self-watering list that I have, self-watering planters list that I have for you guys to refer to. I still use and make my own self-watering pots. So this is a decorative pot, probably something that you would see at the grocery, or someone gifted you an orchid. What I did was, of course, just make my own moss pole. This plant was a new one from Bros with Hose. It's a Rhaphidophora depressiva, so it's also an aroid, and aroids love the pond mix. Actually, this plant put out 2 fenestrated leaves since I had it in pond since I got it. So all I did was buy those $1 clear orchid pots, and this one doesn't even have a wick. It literally sits on top of the water level or the water reservoir at the bottom. See those, I'm sure that I didn't clean this up well, but there's some more substrate clinging onto the roots, but I don't see that as a problem causing this plant to go downhill a few months from now. Hopefully this will not be a premonition. But yes, if you could notice, all you have to do is just be creative on having an inner pot and just sticking it or putting it inside a pot that doesn't have drainage so that it'll serve as a reservoir. And the plant is loving itself or its life here. It might fall. And I'm trying to make this plant climb this moss bowl that I just made for it a few days ago. And we will see if the plant will continue to produce more fenestrated leaves. Based on observation, it does look like it will continue with the trend. So practically those are the different types of planters that I have my plants in. I also have different variations of those makeshift self-watering planters, just mainly using all those clear orchid pots and then using a cache pot or a pot that doesn't have drainage. I will just leave water like a 3rd level on there, and that's how pond would work. You also could buy a variety of all those fancier self-watering pots depending on your aesthetic. I try to go for like the clear ones, but every now and then for pictures, I would hide them inside decorative pots just so they look cuter. What you could also do is, I tried it before. I bought these self-watering planters off Amazon, and you could just use the inner pot that it comes with, so it'll come with a stick, or you could just buy macrame cord and actually DIY this yourself and put it on your preferred decorative pot. That also works as well. Now, I think this is a very lengthy video already for like more of the basic questions that we get about pond. Practically, when it comes to watering, you could be a little bit neglectful if it has a reservoir, because once the roots are more of like hydro roots, they could tolerate a little bit more of drying because they're just so used to the excess moisture. Okay, so that was today's video about pond. I was saying that if you have more questions, feel free to drop your comments or questions below. You could also reach out on Instagram. It's CyrilCybernated. And I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. If you appreciate this video, please give it a thumbs up again and consider subscribing to my channel because I would really appreciate your support. I'm trying to be an active creator here on YouTube as well. And that's it for today. I hope if you find success in Lechuza PON, please let me know. Tag me on Instagram or send me a DM if you don't want to do it publicly. And yeah, see you guys again on my next PON video. Hopefully something else would come up, and I'd also like come up with more content as well. So that's it. Peace out. Bye.